RPGs are a genre of very long games. Games that you stay with for a long time and have intense concentration on. Interestingly enough, it's also a genre that if you play a lot of these games, it's easy to forget about some of them. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 20 forgotten RPGs that nobody remembers. Starting off with number 20, Witchfire, which was released back in 2024. It was an unusual melding of genres. It looks like it should be a big deal, but strangely it got kind of overlooked by the larger gaming community. Part of the problem is that it is currently still in early access. For a lot of people, the early access tag is a signal to not really pay attention or even to forget about the game. Witchfire is one of those games I've kind of wishlisted and forgotten about for a couple of years, waiting for it to actually come out. And that is a reasonable position to take. Not just with this game, but with any game. In particular, for RPGs, I'm a little hesitant to jump in to a game that is not already feature complete. But I will also say that although it's one I've kind of waited on, in doing this list, I've given it a bit of a chance, and this game is something different. On top of being a first-person RPG that incorporates both melee, magic, and guns into its combat system, it's also a single-player extraction game. It's part Diablo, part Borderlands, part Souls, and part Escape from Tarkov, PvE. A lot of parts, but it's the only way to describe it. It's really not like anything else out there. Usually with something this ambitious and strange, the polish and production values aren't quite there either, but Witchfire is actually a beautiful game with really impressive world design. The combat is snappy, challenging, and it feels good. It's still probably a long way off from being finished, so I don't know if I can fully recommend it, but dropping in at this point, I think it's an impressive product, and it got barely any attention early on. It's got a lot of Steam reviews, but it's one of those games that gets hype but doesn't really break into the wider discussion. It's unfortunate because I do think it's a game to watch out for based on actually playing it. Well, I mean, seriously, give it a go. I think you might agree. Something I'd also like you to give a go is enabling notifications. I notice comments. People are not getting all of their videos. They recently brought the number of long-form videos that are displayed on the homepage down to 3 and blast you with shorts. So if you want to see gameranx videos, honestly, notifications are probably the best way to ensure or at least raise the likelihood of seeing them. We also really appreciate it. It's doing us a big solid. We hope it helps you see some stuff you want to see. I won't waste any more of your time. Thanks for enabling notifications. Let's get back to the video. And number 19 is Romancing Saga 2. Square Enix has been putting out a lot of high quality but completely overlooked games in the last few years. It's a strategy that feels pretty old school these days, with all these other publishers putting all their eggs in one basket hoping for a mega hit, rather than the old way of just covering the spread and hoping for the best. The old way is definitely safer, it's more consistent, we get more games, and oddly enough, you could profit without a mega hit. Square Enix publishing a lot of games has worked out for them in the long run, but it does mean that at least in the West, some games have been falling through the cracks, like this one in particular. The Saga games have always been pretty niche over here. A lot of the SNES ones, including the game that this is a remake of, never even got released outside Japan. And the Saga games that did come over here were either rebranded or mostly ignored. At best, they managed to be cult games like Saga Frontier. It's a shame because the original Romancing Saga 2 is a pretty mechanically interesting game, and the remake is an excellent modern reimagining. It's a non-linear RPG where you don't play as a single character but a role. You're the Emperor, and as you progress through the game, you pass down your skills to the next Emperor. You can pick a lot of different classes to play as. That affects your overall growth. Takes you thousands of years to get through the game, depending on how long to get through the 7 legendary heroes who get corrupted by evil. Takes a long time to defeat them. Like basically every Saga game, there are a lot of strange, unexplained systems here, but even still, this is probably the most accessible game in the series. 2 is highly respected in Japan, but is mostly unknown here. That should change.
This is okay.
Well, that was easy.
And number 18 is Neo: The World Ends With You, another strangely overlooked game from Square Enix. This one is especially strange because it's a sequel to one of the biggest cult hits on Nintendo DS. Maybe it's just because of how long it took to get a sequel, or it just goes to show how niche the first game actually was. Somehow the sequel managed to be even more forgotten and overlooked though, which is a shame because they really had something here. they was a cookin'. It is not the same as the first game, though. There was really no chance you could have done the same thing, because the original relied on the DS stylus for its unique battle system, but it's still unique and interesting. It oozes style, and while it's not blowing anyone away, it is a sharp-looking game.
Did I do that? You sure did. Yes, got it. Nice one, Rin, dude. Yeah!
Fans of the original were pretty mixed about the actual story of this one, but it is interesting, even if some of the character choices don't sit right with fans. It's not like if you're learning about this game now, you care about that, though. It's got a great soundtrack. It does try to follow up on some of the plots introduced in the first game, and maybe the game could have benefited from being a little bigger, simply based on the name of The World Ends With You. Sounds huge, but the game isn't that big. Great game, though. At number 17 is Divinity 2, the Dragon Knight Saga. Larian is a household name these days, but back in 2010, the Divinity series was far more niche than it is now. In 2025, the latest Divinity game gets featured front and center at the Game Awards, and immediately becomes one of the most hyped upcoming releases, but go back 15 years, and the name Divinity didn't really mean a lot to a lot of people. Divinity 2, originally subtitled Eco Draconis, then Dragon Knight Saga, then just Developer's Cut. Game saw a lot of variations. It was made during Larian's weird phase where they couldn't quite figure out the formula. The first game in the series was more of a Diablo type, where this game is like a third-person action RPG where you could fly dragons. Weird hybrid that's lacking some of the personality of later Larian games, but one of the few games that really lets you cut loose on the back of a mighty dragon. It stands out more than some other RPGs of the era that were more generic and forgettable. Interestingly, though, it's kind of a forgotten gem. Far from perfect, clearly rushed at the end. There's some general jank. It's simpler and earlier than Larian's other games. The on-foot combat isn't anything to write home about. Story is a bit of a load of nothing, but the world is super interesting to explore, and the dragon riding is mega fun. It's far from their best game, but it's not as bad as the reviews make it seem. And number 16 is The Last Story. We currently live in an era of abundant RPGs. Many different types, many different games, but in the late 2000s, early 2010s, things were in a pretty bad place for the genre. They were still being made, but they were almost always niche, and when they did get published, they did make very strange choices in an attempt to gain mainstream acceptance. But The Last Story, it made some interesting choices that I think actually kind of worked. It was a Wii exclusive action RPG. It was kind of Japan's answer to Gears of War, but that's a big oversimplification because it doesn't really have much third-person shooting. But if you describe it some other way, it makes less sense. It's a weird game that incorporates action game melee combat and waist-high walls for cover.
What's going on?
The game was made as a direct response to the mixed to negative response that more traditional RPGs at the time were getting. You know, like Blue Dragon or Lost Odyssey, they got some crap. Lost Odyssey is considered an underappreciated classic nowadays, and even fellow Project Rainfall game Xenoblade Chronicles is highly regarded, but The Last Story is mostly forgotten despite having been made by Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. Maybe some unusual gameplay mechanics confuse people, but the game is pretty well made and fun once you get your head around it, and for a Wii game, the production values are absolutely excellent. It was a game that was mostly overlooked at the time, and has been almost entirely forgotten about now, but man, does it deserve more respect than it got. May not be an all-time classic, it was a strange JRPG / third-person shooter hybrid, and it's a lot better than it ever got credit for. At number 15 is Unicorn Overlord, an excellent strategy RPG from Vanillaware. It's their most ambitious project yet. The game combines elements of ogre battle and an open-world RPG. It's weird to say that, but it does it to a brilliant effect, and it's not super difficult, at least till the end. It is a beautiful and very fun tactical RPG that has many influencers, but brings it together in a unique way. It just stands on its own. Technically, probably the developer's most successful game, selling over 1 million copies in under 6 months. Maybe in terms of pure sales, it's below Dragon's Crown, but for this studio, it was a big success. Still, with even positive word of mouth and strong sales, the game remains pretty niche among more casual RPG players, which is a shame because it's probably the studio's most accessible game yet. The artwork is incredible as usual, but the gameplay is easy to understand and play, despite having a ton of depth. The real-time nature of the combat means fights go by pretty quick. The old world gives you a lot of other stuff to do. You don't just have to grind through the main plot. Having an aspect of exploration, getting some side activities is a big improvement for a game like this, where even the excellent combat, it can get a little stale after a while. The story's pretty straightforward, but as a hybrid strategy game and RPG, it's a very good fusion of genres that remains relatively niche. And number 14 is Summoner 2, an RPG from the PlayStation 2 made by Volition, the Saints Row guys. Before donning the purple, Volition made a wide variety of games, including the first ELSS noteworthy Summoner, a Western-style RPG with real-time combat and a creature summoning mechanic to go along with the fighting. That first game is really only notable for being a launch PS2 game, but Summoner 2 is a lot weirder. The setting is completely different. The game has become an action RPG, and the style is far less fantasy Europe and more of an inexplicable mix of Indian and oceanic design influences. It's super weird, but it's a great game. Volition was nothing if not very consistent back in the day. Most of their games were very solid, and this one was actually something more. It was pretty special. It's not the greatest action RPG of all time, but it's so unique that it deserves a little bit more time in the spotlight than it got. And number 13 is Blue Dragon, Mistwalker's first game made in collaboration with Microsoft Game Studios, mostly forgotten about. When people discuss RPGs on the Xbox 360, they're going to talk about Lost Odyssey, the studio's other game on the platform, but Blue Dragon does deserve a call out as well. This game is old school by design, meant to appeal to JRPG fans. Back when the Xbox was at least attempting to break into that market, didn't really work, and Blue Dragon isn't the best RPG of all time or anything. It's not even Mistwalker's best. The game really does have a long shadow to live in with Lost Odyssey, but it's a decent game in its own right. It deserves a look from RPG fans looking for something familiar, but with some interesting twists. Among a certain audience, this game is more famous for the boss theme, Eternity, which had a Deep Purple guy sing the ridiculous lyrics. They just took that song and used it in Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, which is somehow less obscure than this game. While the game got dinged by reviewers for being so old school and traditional, these days that's actually refreshing and people like it. I mean, I always thought that was a good thing, personally. At number 12 is Stray Children Moon Remix RPG, has been cited as a major inspiration for Undertale, and now the creator of Moon came back in 2025 with a new game that is in many ways inspired by Undertale. Moon is a crazy obscure RPG, but its spiritual successor is even more obscure despite coming out only a few short months ago. Despite being made by a new team called Onion Games, that distinct love de leak charm is all over this thing. Is strange and beautiful, but also needlessly frustrating in a way that's gotta limit the game's appeal. It's Undertale, but they made sparing enemies a huge pain in the ass. Even not sparing certain bosses is very difficult. The guy's got a mean streak, and it's not apparent from the art style. It is a bit of a tough game to recommend, but if you're the adventurous type who doesn't mind some friction, this is an interesting game. At number 11 is Resonance of Fate. This 2010 RPG developed by Tri-Ace is one of the strangest from the era. It feels like something out of the more adventurous, freewheeling days of the PlayStation 1, just released at a time when RPGs were severely on the downswing. It's far from a traditional RPG, from the narrative to the combat, even the weapons that you use. There's no sword in sight. All three of the main characters use guns in a strategic combat system. It's one of those games, though, that once you get your head around it, man, it's interesting. It just doesn't play like anything else out there. The story is a bit strange and meandering, doesn't have a standard overworld. It's just not a traditional game. It's probably a little too weird for its own good, especially given it came out quite a while ago, and I don't know if we've even gotten that weird with RPGs yet. Now, I can't help but respect it, though. They made the game they wanted. It's memorable, and it's unique, and it's interesting, but it is tough to stick with in the long haul. And number 10 is Child of Light. Between 2011 and 2014, Ubisoft managed to make a few really great games with their tragically underutilized UbiArt framework. They used it to make two really good Rayman games, the charming and tragic Valiant Hearts and the unusual and ambitious Child of Light, a side-scrolling RPG with a story told almost entirely through rhyme, which could have been very annoying. Like, when I say that, it sounds super annoying, but it's not. It works.
It was the Great Friday before Easter 1895. Players performed for the Duke, his new bride at his side.
It uses a fairy tale atmosphere, and it has a Grandia-inspired combat system, which, ooh, man, more of that is needed in the JRPG world. It's tactical, it's challenging, it's not a long game. It was originally released for just $15 on Xbox Live Arcade, but that does not mean it is lacking in content. It's not Hollow Knight, but it's also not 2 hours. It manages to feel like a full, complete RPG despite a relatively truncated plot. For a random foray into the RPG genre by Ubisoft, it punched way above its weight, and it's another example of how there are so many talented developers at Ubisoft, and if they just let these guys make the games that they come up with and want to do, magic could happen, but Ubisoft is just too busy pursuing infinite money. And number 9 is Anachronox. Man, is this a game I love talking about. John Romero was making the world his bitch with the abysmally bad Daikatana. Warren Spector was making one of the all-time greats with Deus Ex. Tom Hall was frittering away on Ion Storm's most forgotten project, the sci-fi RPG Anachronox. This is one of the early examples of a Western developer trying to make an RPG like Japan. And while the guys at Sandfall were able to hit pay dirt with Expedition 33, this game, it didn't quite succeed in that respect. It completely bombed, actually. Ion Storm was dissolved. The cliffhanger at the end of the game was never evolved. The game fell into obscurity because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going against this game in terms of description. It's a strangely comedic game, which the marketing and packaging and box art and name of the game and everything make it sound like it is not going to be. It's kind of like if a Final Fantasy-ish, Chrono Trigger-ish type plot was run through Futurama, and the fact that the story isn't as coherent as it should be and, again, ends on a cliffhanger matters less because the charm, there's so much charm.
Lots of them. We could share a few if you've got any to spare.
Look, you little beefer. I know every Stulola from here to the reservoir, and you ain't a regular.
I wouldn't say that the turn-based combat was the most incredible thing you've ever seen in your life, but there's some creative ideas here. The world design and exploration hold up surprisingly well for a game from 2001. It's odd that it doesn't come together in a satisfying way, but it's a game that deserves a lot more recognition than it got. Believe me, if I get to bring up Anachronox, I'm hyped because I was a big advocate of the game when it came out because it was just so weird to see people using the damn Quake 2 engine to make a JRPG.
Bucko, you're not staggering anywhere until you find a decent job lead, grab some money, and get a camera from your office. Oh, and put that time miner behind you for good luck while you're at it.
And number 8 is Battle Chasers Nightwar. For a game with so many names attached to it, you'd think it'd be a little more well-known. There's Joe Mad, who's responsible for the artwork. Same guy who did the designs for Darksiders and is a major comic book artist. And they've got Jesper Kyd as a composer. The game itself is based on the comic of the same name and is in many ways a traditional RPG throwback, only it came out in 2017, before these types of games were starting to get popular again, but after the point where it would be seen as innovative. The game kind of feels lost in time, you know? It's grindy, the battles can be slow, but as an RPG, it's pretty damn well made. Bit of a toss-up between this game and Ruin King, a League of Legends story. They're both mostly forgotten, Western-developed JRPGs made by Airship Syndicate, but at least more people know what League of Legends is. Like, nobody remembers Battle Chasers. And number 7 is Small Saga. So many good RPGs have come out just in the past few months, many of them very obscure, but very good despite that. We live in an age where indies can be excellent out of nowhere. Games like Kingdoms of the Dump or Look Outside or Quartet, or the 2023 game we're looking at today, Small Saga. It's a rodent RPG, it's carefully polished, carefully crafted, and it's got tricky boss battles as its focus over tedious grinding. It's a game that might look a little bland from the screenshots, but it's much better made than any first impression might lead you to believe. Tightly constructed, not a lot of fat, also pretty damn funny. And number 6 is 7, The Long Day Is Gone. This role-playing / open world / adventure / immersive sim rarely gets mentioned, but it's easily one of the most immersive games from the past few years. Its world is a fascinating mix of medieval and sci-fi. The open world, it's dense, it's complex, it's got a mix of combat and stealth. Very unique for a top-down game. This game was made by former Witcher developers, but it feels like an alternate universe Ultima. If it had a baby with Thief and Dishonored, that is. There's really nothing else quite like it. Its world is sprawling but handcrafted. The story's bizarre, intriguing, though very weird but very ambitious. And that's a combination you just don't see enough of these days. It's not the most accessible of games, to be clear. It's pretty tough. Enemies can kill you pretty quickly, but I mean, it's immersive sim. Got a massive world, tons of stuff to do. Yes, the resources are scarce, but it's got some of the best top-down level design I've ever seen in a game. Not for everybody, but for the correct sort of gaming obsessive, there is so much to like here.
Number 5.
Septerra Core. Everybody loved games like Final Fantasy VII, and while other developers like BioWare took inspiration from more cinematic RPGs from Japan, they made something unique like Planescape Torment. Valkyrie Studios and Monolith Productions made something a little more traditional. The JRPG inspiration's very clear with this one, but it was made in an age where Western devs couldn't get the look down right. The 3D models just look weird. The pre-rendered look of the characters always looked a bit off. As the PC's answer to Final Fantasy VII, it's kind of a poor imitation, but as a product of its time, it's super interesting. It's not a great game, but I can't help but have a bit of a soft spot for it. It's actually got a pretty interesting world, for one thing. The battles are a bit slow, there are way too many random encounters, and everyone looks doofy, but it's got that early 2000s charm that carries it, and I just think it's worth it. Not gonna lie and tell you it's like an incredible game, but it's super interesting for many reasons. And number 4 is Shadow Tower Abyss, the spiritual successor of the King's Field games. It's obscure for a very good reason. It was never released outside of Japan. The only way to play it in English these days is to apply a fan patch, and that only became available nearly 10 years after the original came out. It's often considered a spiritual predecessor to the Souls series, and even Bloodborne. It's an important part of historical context, but most importantly, it's a very interesting take on the traditional dungeon crawler. For one thing, you have a gun. The game starts with a modern-day explorer venturing down into these mysterious alien ruins where countless generations of explorers have come to uncover the secrets. That's why you can find muskets alongside Roman swords. The actual environments of the Shadow Tower are otherworldly and alien. In a lot of ways, the game feels like a bad dream. Feels like it doesn't make logical sense, but it's still compelling. And number 3 is Colony Ship. This unfortunately overlooked spiritual successor to the original Fallout games was developed by the same people who made Age of Decadence. If you know about that game, you probably know what to expect here. Extremely unforgiving combat, complex quest trees, a lot of difficult decisions to make that will probably not work out in your favor. The guys love to put you on the back foot. You're almost always at a disadvantage in this game, and resources are low. It's a game about barely scraping by, even on normal difficulty. The challenge makes it a pretty tough game to recommend, but if you like games like Underrail, you'll probably be at home here. The setting is brilliant. You're stuck on a colony ship that might as well be the wasteland. The ship has been in space so long, the systems are failing pretty bad. Food supplies are running out, and people are forced to inhabit the cargo decks just to survive. Air quality is falling. Bandits and strange alien species inhabit large, uninhabited areas of the ship. and different factions are constantly warring with each other in the upper decks. It's bleak, but it's super fascinating, and it's just an interesting, if unforgiving, RPG experience. And number 2 is E.V.O. Search for Eden. It's that Super Nintendo game that all the olds saw at the local Blockbuster but never rented because it looked weird and boring. I am here to tell you that this is actually one of the most interesting RPGs ever made. Also one of the most insane. The description that this is a game about the evolution of life on Earth sounds dangerously close to being educational, but don't worry, the game quickly goes off the rails, more like a precursor to Spore, honestly, where you start off as a rudimentary organism and gain experience and evolve slowly over time into more complex forms of life. Brilliant idea for an RPG. It's never been done quite like it is here, probably for good reason. But if you're patient and don't mind some grinding, it is a fascinatingly weird RPG that I think at least some of you are going to get a big kick out of. And finally, at number 1, it's ZanZarah, the Hidden Portal. There's always something new out there to discover, and this game is a perfect example of that. It's a German-made 2002 PC-only RPG that's part Pokemon, part Unreal Tournament, which sounds completely insane, and it is, but somehow the actual game is weirder than that. Mostly because it's not trying to be weird. It's like not some psychedelic drug trip. It's not intentionally being as out there as possible. It's just, it is what it is in the... It's a frilly foo-foo girl-friendly RPG where you collect fairies and then battle it out. But instead of turn-based battles, fairy duels are fought in first-person in multiplayer-like arenas. It is one of the strangest games I have ever seen. And I'm gonna be honest, I had never heard about it until we started talking about doing this list. Like, most of these games on this list I would describe as probably about medium-level obscurity. We're not throwing, like, Ancient Roman or Hoshi wa Miro Hito on here or something like that. I'm trying to spare you that level of painful obscurity, but this is a totally unique, legitimately interesting, very strange game I had never heard of before. It's not great or anything, but it's an RPG where they replace turn-based battles with FPS shooter segments. Like, imagine you're playing Persona and then suddenly it's Call of Duty. I mean, it's actually kind of sick. I don't know what the hell the developers behind this project were on, but let me just go ahead and say this. I beg independent game developers of the internet watching this video, I know you're doing it, steal this idea. It's too good to be trapped in ZanZarah, the Hidden Portal. That's all I've got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Become a member of the 1% Club with the join button. That gives you access to the Falcon Show every Saturday. We're having a blast doing that. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.